This is Matt Singer. I'm the arts and culture editor at Willamette Week, and my guest today is Gregg Hale. He is a Portland-based writer, producer, and film director who you would mostly know from producing the Blair Witch Project, which I'm sure many people will be revisiting this month or visiting for the first time. So Gregg, I wanted to just kind of start though by asking you kind of our basic question for these, which is how has quarantine been going for you now that we're 7 months in?
Yeah. I know in the grand scheme of things, we're pretty lucky. I work from home unless we're shooting. I usually work from home anyway. We sold a couple of projects from a writing perspective right before quarantine started, so the timing was awesome. Um, I think the biggest thing has been the situation with the kids and not being in school. I think that's been the most difficult thing for us to deal with. Just because you're worried about the experience that your kids are having with the online school experience, and especially now that we know it's going to go to January of next year. It just gets a little frustrating. But in the grand scheme of things, I know we're super lucky, and it hasn't been bad. Been a pain in the ass, but I know that lots of people are dealing with way worse.
So you talked a little bit about, you sold a couple of projects kind of right before quarantine, but how have you noticed, what effect has the coronavirus had on the sort of independent film world? Either what's been the impact either on yourself or that you've seen from peers?
Yeah. Well, I mean, all production in the United States, completely shut down until just very recently. My business partner, had a full year 2020 scheduled out he directs a lot of TV. All that got canceled. And he's only just now about to go down to New Orleans and start working on a shoot. So, just from the people that I knew, it just seems like in the last month or so that productions actually started again in the United States. So that was a huge change. And then, a lot of what we do is pitching stuff. And that went away almost completely, except that you could do it over Zoom. So we had to shift a little bit with that and build some video pitches instead of, a thing where you're actually in the room with people. But yeah, I mean, it's completely changed the film business. And then obviously now with the exhibitors starting to go out of business, starts to get a little scary. I mean, we made a shift when you mentioned indie film. I mean, we were very much old school indie filmmakers for years and years. Soup to nuts, raise the money, make the movie, sell the movie, chase the money kind of thing. And we shifted a few years ago to almost all TV, just because there's so much more opportunity and frankly so much more funding available in television. And to some degree, aside from the lack of production, obviously, TV and streaming right now is doing great, in terms of the people watching stuff. So, hopefully things balance out once we kind of get through this and things regulate or normalize somewhat with production, and we come back to a place where we can actually still go see movies, which is like one of my favorite things in the world to do.
How do you think this period of time is going to affect the kind of movies that people want to see? Is it going to spark a shift in what people want from movies, do you think?
I don't know, man. That's a good question. I mean, like right now, if you even mention anything, at least to our agents, we almost all strictly do horror. We're very much pigeonholed, not in a bad way necessarily, but we mostly do horror. But if we mention something, an idea that you think feels at all like a virus or a plague or a something like that, they're like, nope, not interested. So at least right now, and at least in the horror genre, there's no interest in mirroring reality right now, which is a lot of times what horror does. But I think just a virus, a pandemic or whatever is kind of so close to a horror scenario anyway, that people don't want an imagined version of it.
Yeah,
Very
I was going
interesting.
to ask I was going to ask more specifically about, the horror genre, which is mostly what you work in, because you just hear so much that people talk about, oh, just opening Twitter every day is a
Totally.
horror
Yeah,
film.
yeah. Right,
Does that,
exactly.
yeah. So, I mean, do you think it'll get harder to scare people, or do people just not even want to be scared at all, at least on the levels that they were before, because of reality just kind of being what it is?
Well, horror films are actually doing okay right now in terms of streaming and popularity and stuff coming out. And they seem to be doing pretty well, just as long as they're not like virus like, or I think maybe overly political. But for example, we had sold a project earlier this year that was a movie that centered on cops getting into like a supernatural thing. And they came back to us after all the stuff with George Floyd and the protests and everything. And they're like, we can't sell anything with cops in it right now. So we had to completely like redo the idea and revamp it so it wasn't centered on police officers. So that's definitely an example, like even in the horror genre, it's like right now, people don't want to see that. They don't want to see that explored, at least in that way, because I think it is such a horrific thing in so many ways. It's like, oh no, we don't really need to see a horror film about that right now.
So we're in the middle of spooky season, which,
Mhm.
as we said, you have an interest in horror, obviously.
Yep.
Is this month? Do you treat this month sort of in the way that some people do, as just like an excuse to indulge, those the spookier elements of entertainment, or is that kind of just an all year round interest for you?
Yeah. No, I love, I mean, no big surprise. I love Halloween. Me and the kids like, decorate the front of the house, and we have, we used to do a haunted house and uh all sorts of stuff. So no, I love Halloween. We're trying to figure out how much of Halloween we can salvage this year. There's huge trick-or-treating in our neighborhood, so we figured that we're going to have kids no matter what. So we're building a candy chute and a candy catapult to kind of do distanced trick-or-treating this year. But no, I love it and uh, enjoy it every year. But this year is definitely going to be different. We'll have to see how it turns out.